Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Follow up, I'm gonna get right to the heart of the problem. I wanted you to take a look at this. This is the list of meetings for the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority. Have a look at this, folks, right here, okay? All right. The last meeting is, as you can see, it's September 15th. Okay, we just had that one. You can watch the meeting here on Zenny 62 YouTube. All right. And if I go through the page and I go all the way up to start of 2023, right? You have January, February, March meeting canceled, April canceled. All right. But my point is, you have a consistent listing of meetings. You have March, April, May, June, July, August canceled, and board meeting. All right. September amended, but that's it. Nothing else. So you would be, you know, it would be okay for you to ask what happened to the Coliseum Joint Powers Authority. Did it cease to exist? You know, what's going on? Because it certainly looks that way. It certainly looks that way. And remember the previous meeting that was held, the one on the 15th, was regarding a discussion about the future of the Coliseum. So you take that, you put what I just showed you together, and it looks like, well, we don't really know if this organization's going to survive. And all of a sudden, there's no scheduled meeting. That would be one thing if this was some type of casual club. But in reality, it is a it represents a multi-billion-dollar facility. Multi-billion. If I call the number to the JPA, I get my friend's voicemail. I'm not going to put out her name, but I get my friend's voicemail as staff to the JPA. I should not get my friend's voicemail. Okay. How you doing, Freddie? I should not get my friend's voicemail. I'm putting Freddie's right over there. Okay. What I should get is something like this. Hi, welcome to the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority. No one is available to speak with you. The Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority has a long history of building sports and entertainment memories and future events for you to enjoy. To contact Executive Director Henry Gardner, press 1. To contact Nicole Strange and ASM Management, press 2. To contact other staff, press 3. That is what you should hear. You should not hear, hello, this is name removed. Please leave a message of the sound of the tone. Beep. That's not a professional presentation. Okay. And this has gone on for years. All right. I haven't talked about this aspect of it because these folks are my friends. And so you get used to, that's why when I'm in communicating with them, I always say, we have to get better. All right. You're used to a certain way of commiserating. But the bottom line is, over the period of time, this kind of way the JPA has gone on, we've lost sports organization after sports organization after sports organization after sports organization in a rapid clip. And so now it's time for us to change everything that we do and focus. What I didn't like about the presentation that we had was well, it was more navel contemplating, like in 2017, after it was clear the Raiders are gone. Well, they're gone. It's not being proactive. It's letting some organization, doesn't matter whether it's the NBA and the Warriors, or the NFL and the Raiders, or now Major League Baseball and the Athletics, or the Oakland Panthers, allow us to let them dictate our path. Or for that matter, the Oakland Roots, which should have been in a contract subordinate to AASEG. But now we have a situation where you have two exclusive negotiating agreements that apply to one piece of land, even though the Roots is segmented, all right? And the Roots have done phenomenally well at raising money for themselves. But look, AASEG, if it has done phenomenally well at raising money for itself, hasn't made that evident. Because the question is, what has AASEG been able to do or done? And again, it pains me to say this because I'm talking about people who are operating this, who are friends of mine, but I have the same conversations with them. Hey, what's going on? Hey, how are you doing? And the trouble is that everybody who gets involved in this has their little bunker, their little group. The Oakland Roots have their little group. AASCG has its little group. The JPA has its tiny little group. All right. The city council's over here, but the city council needs money. And so, it raids of all places the JPA's coffers to get 2 million when it should have ignited enhanced infrastructure financing district legislation to get more than that money, set up the redevelopment type agency, the public financing authority that the city of Oakland can borrow from, and then carry on without interrupting its entertainment organization, which is the Coliseum JPA. I don't care that the JPA doesn't recognize it, it's true. All right. But the reality is we have a situation where the JPA has elected officials doing staff work. You heard me. The elected officials doing staff work. So if I want to find out when the next meeting is, it's the 20th, by the way, I have to call an elected official. Where's staff? All right. I told Scott McKibben this, and I said it to Henry Gardner. Hey, the University of San Francisco has one of the best sport management programs in the country. Why don't you establish an internship program with them and get students to help you? If you're concerned about them spilling beans or something, have them sign an NDA. All right. But there's no overall process that assures the delivery of a professional approach to anything, especially when you call them. So all of this needs to be straightened out because it doesn't look like there's anybody at home. How's Henry doing? I don't know. What's the next steps? I don't know. There's a document, a letter that's out there that I'm trying to get a hold of. I was supposed to have gotten, don't have it. There's too much secrecy. And in my experience, where there's secrecy, there's error in a public setting. Government organizations like the Coliseum Joint Powers Authority are not designed to be secret. They're supposed to be public. That was the whole idea when Ignacio came in and moved George Rucasin Jr.'s dad, the great George Rucasin Sr., out of the way, who was president of the Coliseum Joint Powers Authority Board when it was a private organization, because Bob Nahas was private. Okay, when it became publicly owned, because of the Raider deal, Ignacio de la Fuente, District 5 council member, president of the council, said it's our money now, and had worked with Ezra Rapport, who was assistant city manager and the first executive director of the Coliseum Authority, to have the whole structure redone to what it is today with the two supervisors, two city council, but then two more seats for the private on council and on county side, Oakland City Council. All right. But they left out, unimplemented, a provision to add as many as 20 members of the business community on it. We could have had our task force for, name it, new Raiders Stadium, new A's Stadium, both, new Warriors facility. All right. But they have never ignited it. And this is not the first time I raised this issue, folks. This has gone on all the way back to 1996. Yeah, I raised the issue that far back. Okay. So let's do some humorous figuring here. 1996, 2006, 2016. Wow. Yeah, 30 years. All right. 1996 to 2006, 2006 2016, excuse me, 20 years. 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Ooh, 8 years. That's 28 years. It's almost 30. 30 years and they haven't implemented that provision. It has just been sitting there. All right. Sitting there. Sitting there. And now we're talking about an enhanced infrastructure financing district that can be done with the JPA. So now at the same time, the county is saying, hey, we want out of the sports business, to which I've said to my friend Nate Miley, who I love. I think Nate's an awesome guy. But this is the matter of the business of the city and the county. And my friends happen to be in charge. And so the simple fact of the matter is, as I've said to him before, look, if you want to do this right, okay, then we need, not just you, okay, but we need to not just establish an enhanced infrastructure financing district for ourselves, but a sports commission. We don't have that at all. And yet we have the JPA acting like a sports commission, going after certain events through ASM. That's what sports commissions do. Not saying ASM shouldn't be doing that, but I'm saying that it is wrong to have a private organization singularly finding events for your facility that it manages when it's also managing other facilities and could put you in competition with another facility that it's responsible for. You need your own people to augment what they do. That's where sports commission comes in, so that you can produce your own events. All right. But the JPA, as it's structured, is too insular. It's far too insular. And it needs to really be cognizant of the fact that it represents the most viable, most visible symbol of government institutions that are out there. When you come out of the airport, you drive down the Nimitz, heck, you visit somebody in Lake Merritt who happens to have a high rise that looks out to the south when there's an A's game and they happen to be popping the fireworks. You can see the fireworks from there. That's the Coliseum. That's our most visible example of government at work. Think about it. So you would think that we would be more than interested in making sure that it does its job exceptionally well. Instead, we're far too casual in how we regard the Coliseum. Juan Eric says, blessings all, and Zinni62. Thank you. Blessings to you as well. Blessings to you as well. God bless you. But we should not have elected officials acting as staff. For one giant reason that I'm hesitant to mention, but I will. It's called conflict of interest. You don't want elected officials to be in a position where they could be accused of taking money from certain people to provide access to them. I'm not saying that that's going on, but I'm saying that if you are acting as staff and you're working on scheduling the meeting as opposed to the staff, you send out the message that you could very well wind up in a position that allows that kind of optic. That's a job for your executive director staff, not you guys. You're supposed to be the overseers. You've got all these things to do. You're worried about education. You're worried about crime, most important. You're worried about budget deficits and clearing them. You're worried about making sure the garbage is picked up. You're worried about everything that has to do with city operations. So you can't focus on the Coliseum and expect your focus to be optimal when you're in all of these different directions. That's why you have specialists, or supposed to have specialists, that focused only on the operation of the stadium authority. That's it. The Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority is the only joint powers authority of its kind, the only stadium authority of its kind, where the elected officials are actively staffing the operation of it. Now, is that to say Henry's not there? No, Henry is there. But you shouldn't have one elected official saying, well, call the other elected official about a scheduling issue. It should be staff. So now I'm giving you a picture that existed when they turned on my friend Scott McKibben. I got Scott that job of JPA executive director. He called me expressing interest in that job. Why did he call me? Because he helped me on the Super Bowl, trying to bring it to Oakland. We lost to Jacksonville in 2005. He wanted some advice. I told him I thought he'd be outstanding for the position. He was. But when you take a job like that, it is a public sector job in California under California law 1090 regarding conflict of interest. So when you walk into a board meeting, as he did, and then the board says, we don't have a marketing agency to find a naming rights agreement for us. And the board says, Scott, you have a background in sports marketing. You can do it. And Scott says, yes. When that kind of conversation goes on, the board, if they're not telling him that he can run the risk of violating 1090 because he would expect a fee for success, rightly, under normal circumstances, then they are just as wrong as he is. But they didn't see it that way. They hung that man out to dry. It was wrong. And so it's that kind of environment, not a professional one. It doesn't have a book, a management book, a how-to book. which is good risk management. Why? Because then you can say, hey, the book says we should do this, not California law. The book regarding the operation of the Joint Powers Authority based on California law. That book does not exist. That's bad management. That's bad on the JPA lawyers who should know better because they serve us up to be slaughtered. I say us because I love the Coliseum. I love the JPA as an Oakland resident. And even if I'm not an Oakland resident, I still will because of its potential. Ooh, that word, right? But the JPA is one of the few institutions in Oakland that's capable of causing Oakland to reach beyond potential and toward the success of implementation, which causes the word potential to be destroyed. You understand what I'm getting at? If you love and you care about Oakland, you care about what I'm saying. If you don't, you're an advocate for what we're getting. As my friend Alberto Roca, great Latino union rep that I came to befriend when I worked for then Oakland Mayor Lee Harris, would always ask me, Zinni, if you like what you're getting, keep on doing what you're doing. Do you like what you're getting? No one can possibly like what the JPA is getting because it and we are losing too much. The JPA is a multi-billion-dollar facility that is ran as if it was a high school gymnasium. That's got to stop. This isn't to offend anyone, but it is to wake people up. We have to stop allowing our government institutions to function at far less than an optimal level. We have to stop allowing the appearance of an environment that can invite corruption. We have to stop allowing the development and operation of an organization that because it doesn't follow its own rules all the time, it can then selectively apply those rules against certain people it doesn't like. If I were executive director of the JPA, the first thing I would do is I would write that manual. The second thing I would do is have outside counsel review it. I would use part of my salary to hire them. I would force that change. Because in order to get the business that we're in, which is really the meetings, incentives, conventions, entertainment business, right, we got to get our own house in order. The JPA's house is not in order. And I don't care what anybody says. All you have to do to see that it's not in order is look at this list and see that. That right there tells you all you need to know about how the JPA is managed and it's not well. It's right here. Okay? This isn't a matter of saying anybody should step down. You need two or people organ. You need an executive director and you need an assistant executive director. You need a ombudsman or ombudsperson, I think is the more appropriate term. We have our manager in Ms. Strange. So we have in play, we have our attorneys. We have the county supervisor. We have the city council for Oakland. But we don't have interns that could serve as our government liaisons, right? So that we don't have the executive director running around trying to play politics, and the executive director can look at the overall situation. Have another intern to help out with the budget, typing it, evaluating it, doing the calculations and the presentations and everything else. so that Henry isn't overwhelmed. These are just practical things, folks. But they're practical things we don't do as an organization. So we need to get our own house in order before we can talk about the WNBA or anything else. AASEG should be entirely concerned. If I were over the AASEG, I'd have started a press conference last week saying, I want to know who's mining the store at the JPA, and I am aware of our relationship, but I'm concerned that we are not being handled properly. AASEG cannot afford to be trapped in the dysfunction that is the JPA. It will eat it alive. It already has by allowing the Oakland Roots to have an equal playing field rather than a subordinate ENA. There's nothing against the Roots. The Roots have done a phenomenal job. Indeed, I was just put out there, the Roots have actually shown up AASEG. That's the little quiet thing that's really out there. Because they came in and said, hey, we don't want to follow what they're doing. We want what we want. So we're going to get our own connections politically, and we're going to push them away. Is that right? No. Is it also Oakland? Oh, yeah. Should it be? No. 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 Because if the AASEG ran by people who eat you for lunch, the lawsuit against the JPA would have flown out the door a long time ago. They're very lucky that Ray Bobbitt is a nice guy, but they're using Ray Bobbitt's niceness against him. I'm saying it right there, okay? If you want a black developer, knowing that black developers who bring in NFL organizations, let alone the WNBA or anything else, are not exactly growing on trees yet, although going to. As a city, you say, I'm going to make a fiscal commitment as a city to this developer beyond just the ENA. You don't half step it, because if you half step it, you're going to get half performance. We should see a budget for Coliseum City. We should see discussions of possible commitments by sub-developers. We should see a design charrette. We should see all of that. We don't have that. The JPA doesn't even have its own staff to work on a regular basis with AASEG. Ms. Strange, she's managing the Coliseum. That's it. Renee and others are doing, well, hey, work of being an assistant to Mr. Gardner. But there's a lot more work that needs to be done than the total staff out there to do it. So we need to change. We need to make a commitment to developing the staff. We need to get on the phone with the University of San Francisco. And also, I understand that Bolt Hall has the sports law practice there, and establish internship programs that allow us to fill in organizational boxes and yet give students valuable experience. We need to lay out a plan for a sports commission that's operated as an arm outside that is attached to the JPA. Why? Because the JPA already acts like that, and yet it doesn't have an organizational arm. so I can figure out how to split its time and money from the perspective of attracting and writing a proposal for landing sports events. Do you realize that Oakland does not have a single tennis tournament? Think about it. Think about it when you watch the tennis channel, and all around the world you have these events, like in San Diego. Many of the events named after the cities that they're in. Why can't there be something called the Oakland Tennis Classic? Why can't there be a 10K or 5K that runs that's encircles the Coliseum, the annual Coliseum JPA 10K? Those are two events. I've just come up with off the top of my head. That's in addition to the 200 different sports events going on in the United States that we could bid for. And then we could take the full inventory of buildings in the city and work with Visit Oakland and say, hey, look, put us in your publications and help us attract people that run these sports events and have them consider Oakland, have them visit Oakland, have them sign letters of intent to bring their events to Oakland. Let's get our hotels involved. And then let's get a security task force involved so that we make absolutely certain that our tourists are taken care of. So that we've established a value chain of happenings that starts when the person lands in Oakland or San Francisco, Oakland Airport, gets their bags, and heads to transit or private transit or public transit. Make sure they get there safely either way. Make sure the gas stations that they are more likely to go to have security staff so that they're not the victim of a smash and grab, which happens all too often. We're in a city that is already, or a carjacking for that matter, we're in a city that has already topped 400 carjackings. I had forecast 405 carjackings this year for Oakland. Do you realize we're over that already? We have, depending on what you read, between either 8,000 or 10,000 car thefts. That is a wild record in this city. We had 5,000 the year before. We were flirting around with what, 2,500 in 2020. And then you have people who say, or you get mad and say, well, you can't say that Oakland is more dangerous now than there was 30 years ago. We had more crime. No, we didn't. We did not. Homicides, one thing, but none of the other stuff, no. And we all knew who was doing the homicide stuff. That was the gang, like the Norteños, right? Which gave rise to Oakland City Attorney's John Russo's Gang Prevention Task Force. So we need to fix the JPA. We need to stop that appearance. This is shameful. This is awful. And instead of having discussions about the future of the JPA, we need to have planning to assure the future of the JPA. And any elected official that doesn't want the JPA to exist, I guarantee you, they're probably not going to be around next year anyway, because next year is a giant election year. So they shouldn't be involved. It should be the unwritten rule. You sit on the JPA, but you do not plan for the demise of the JPA. Let the staff do that. If we're at a point where we really don't need it, and we're not, stop trying to kill it. Because, Nate said this in a meeting, and I gave a retort. He said, basically, we, the county, are getting out of the sports business. And I said this to the great supervisor, Supervisor Miley. I said this, and I'll say it again. You didn't do it right. And there was never any naval contemplation to say, what did we do wrong? And what are we doing wrong? And I'm explaining what we are doing wrong, and that we need to change. Small changes that lead to big success. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So thank you for your time. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark Oakland News Now, blog.com, ZennyReport.com, newest site. Zenny62blog.com. Follow me on Twitter at Zen62com. Never said that before, have I? And pray for Oakland. But of equal importance, work for Oakland's better future. There was something else I was going to say too. I was trying to remember what it was. I had a number of ideas I wanted to, get out there with this, since I don't want to waste the moment. But regarding AASEG and Dave Stewart, who wanted to be in AASEG's place, I have to say this because of late, the great pitcher, that Dave Stewart was, the great A's legend that Dave Stewart is, has been calling names of people I regard as friends. He doesn't need to do that. It's not, and I'm tired of us as black folks doing the black on black crime thing verbally. But he did. Which leads me to say this, and I don't want it to be forgotten, but it must be reiterated. When Dave Stewart and his great wife, Lonnie, they have their own sports marketing organization, turned in their original proposal to take over the Coliseum portion, the A's also wanted to buy. Remember, the A's wanted to buy both, but Libby came in and said, "Well, hey, let's let a black developer group buy it." Essentially, that was the idea. They turned in a proposal that was passed to me, and I went through it with a fine-tooth comb out of interest, and then I went through it with a fine-tooth comb out of concern, and then I went through the same proposal with the same fine-tooth comb out of anger, because the gentleman that Mr. and Mrs. Stewart got to do it, who has a background in nuclear physics, set up this report about a new town in Prince George's, Maryland, that they had designs to build, but he tried to make it look like it was built. Here's the catch. He neither had the designs to build it, there were no permits anywhere, I checked, and it was never built. It was fraud. No person who looks like me or Mr. Stewart, who's black, should ever, and I say this again, ever be in a situation where they turn in work like that. But that's precisely what he did. And I wrote about it. And they didn't like it. And it wasn't about them. It was about the fact that in this day and age, as much as we are being scrutinized, we have to watch out for each other and say, you know what? You can do better. And here's the thing. They could do better a lot. Did they turn that in? They didn't modify it significantly at all. I know this. And so they didn't get the engagement. AASEG did. I'd have helped Dave Stewart. Well, technically, I did help him for free. I gave him the advice. I wrote about it. All they had to do was say, hey, look, here's our vision, and stick to that. Have their friend do an artist rendition of that, right? Talk about how they're going to implement the vision. Talk about their team strengths and talk about their team weaknesses. And ask the JPA to help them fill in those weaknesses because they were there. This fakery stuff has to stop. If we have the political capacity to do something, but not the fiscal capacity or the staff capacity, admit it. Let the public organization, if it is serious about having a black developer build Coliseum City, fill in those gaps. Because that developer, it doesn't matter if it's AASEG or Dave Stewart, is going to be the master developer. All the other developers, the big people, are going to be subordinate to them anyway, the way the contract should be written. Okay? That's the way it ought to be. All right? But when you have something that politically dicey, because you have people out there who are going to say, hey, Prop 209, you shouldn't be doing this. To which I would fire back, here's case after case after case after case demonstrating that Prop 209 is being used to keep black consultants and developers out and down. Thereby presenting the argument we must do it this way in order to equalize the situation because 209 is only maintaining the racist status quo, and it is. In other words, send the message you're ready for a court fight. Send the message that you're going to win the court fight, and send the message that you're going to win the court fight in public opinion, and do it aggressively. All right? Because the reality is you have a number of organizations out there that love the idea of being able to paint someone black as political and not knowing, and themselves as white and all knowing. It goes on too much, and it's got to stop. I'm talking about the California parlance. It's got to stop. So, small steps, folks. Small steps. The JPA did not have to treat Scott McKibben the way that it did. It lied to him going in. It didn't tell him that they were taking his salary request and passing the information on to another candidate. I found out that's precisely what they were doing from someone inside who didn't like that they were doing it that way. And so I turned the inside information, I put it out, and it stopped. I insist on us being better because the reward is being able to have AFC championship games again, being able to enjoy the camaraderie of other Oaklanders, being able to have great memories, and being able to have places that our nephews and nieces and kids want to go to. We're losing those places, and that should be something that everybody is concerned with. All right. Hello, everyone. How you doing? We're here. So we can get this right, starting with that. We have to fill in these tables through next year. I don't care if we don't know what the agenda is going to be. Just copy and paste like we have done before, the slots. Board package, agenda, date. Even if you don't have anything filled in, you have the slot where it's going to be filled in. Heck, fill it for the next year, 2024, and the next year after that, and the next year after that, and the next year after that. But stop this. This is ridiculous. Because before anybody says to me, well, in the past we didn't have that problem and we stopped it like that, we didn't. Look, see that 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018. See what I mean? All you got to do, click, right? Click, right? Click, right? Click, right? Click, right? So don't tell me it can't be done. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Okay? I don't want to hear it. We can do it. We just have to care to do it. We have to care to do it. We have to care to get it right. That's all I'm saying. So Eric says, I'm doing good. There you go. I care to get it right. My question for you is, do you care to get it right? Not play games with people, not take out political vendettas. Do you care to assemble a joint powers authority that represents the best in professionalism and the capacity for implementation? If you don't care to do that, then you shouldn't be on the board. Too often over this year, we've had board meeting after board meeting after board meeting where it's hard to get a quorum. Henry's talked about it. All right. Henry's talked about it. Poor man leaves him sitting there waiting for people to show up, even on Zoom. The great Carl Chan. Did Carl ever show up for a meeting? I don't think so. I told him, hey, look, if he can't show up for a Zoom meeting, remove Carl, put me in his place. I can get on Zoom. Easy. It's Zoom. Seriously? You have to care. And sorry, Carl, to put your business out there like that, but because you're doing some great things. But this is one thing you didn't do that was not cool. To waste an appointment like that, which should be a coveted board seat. But that speaks to the level of which we've fallen. That Carl would have so little respect for the assignment that he didn't seek to do it. No one else thought that was alarming? I did. I said so. Okay. You got to care about the organization. All right. God bless everybody. Okay. I'll see you later.